So it's time for a presentation from Joe and John from Springfield, Minnesota. I'll turn things over to you and stop sharing.
Sounds good. Well, good morning, everybody. Joe Stremke, City Manager and Economic Development Director.
And I'm John Ryan, a councilman from Springfield, and also on the REV board since about 6 months or so ago, Joe, when we started working with that. Lifelong Springfield resident, and been involved with many different businesses in Springfield, and always a supporter of trying to get new things going and revitalize, keep things going in the town.
Yeah, and so a little backstory, Springfield was awarded a SMIF grant through the REV program. And we've kind of rebranded it in a way for Springfield locally with the Kickstart Springfield Entrepreneur Business Hub. And part of our goal is more or less to encourage entrepreneurs and build a welcoming environment and supportive environment. So some of the things that we've already kind of kickstarted is some of our ribbon cutting and award ceremonies and promoting open houses for our business community. We've also kind of shared our board member resources and branched out the network that way. Some of the business growth and expansion that we've been helping to promote is with like our Loft Nutrition. They've just recently acquired the city's building, built their building that we use for our inaugural entrepreneurship program, and are in the process of renovating the space, and will be opening here in the next few weeks. And then kind of built into our business toolbox of ways that we can help streamline and make starting a business or growing a business as easy as possible. And so this is kind of one of the toolboxes that when we look at ways that you guys as entrepreneurs have gone through this process of, if you looked at a business toolbox of how to help grow or expand your business, what are some things or ideas that you guys had come across that, I wish I had known X, Y, Z, or I wish I had help here getting started? And that's some of those things that we're looking to add into this business toolbox. So far we've added some of our local business financing opportunities, as well as some key contacts and area resources, zoning ordinances and permits, but really looking for even feedback from the audience, so to speak, on things that might help to provide those key resources in a way.
I think I might add, Joe, one of the things we also have been doing is we do have an EDA group that works in the city. They were always more focused on financing and helping the businesses, get the money they needed for startups. Not a lot on the planning and the entrepreneurship. What do you have to do? What are some of the things that you should be looking at to start a business? And what are you going to run into? They really never got into that. And I think that's one of the areas where our REV group has really helped, is we've been able to help them kind of with the whole package. We work closely with the EDA and we don't work against each other, but I think it's helped to kind of put the whole program together.
Mm-hmm. So at least that's a starting point, more or less, and kind of open it up for comments on the business toolbox idea or concept, and then we can kind of branch into a couple other areas.
That's great. I have lots of questions I could ask, so I'll kick off with one while other people think about it. In the business toolbox, you started out with, very local resources, things like finance in the area, and you mentioned ordinances, that sort of thing. And as you expand out and you start looking for entrepreneurial education resources, there's tons of stuff out there. Where do you draw the line, and kind of like what is your sort of delimiter for your business toolbox? It says what goes in it and what doesn't.
So far it's been pretty open. As far as like key contacts and area resources, we've kind of expanded out into the Region 9 and SCORE, SMIF, and really just trying to keep it as inclusive at this point as possible to more or less see what resources or items get clicked on the most in a way where, you know, those items can then be brought to the top in a way that gets more priority based on usage. And
I think we found there is a ton of opportunities out there to look at, you know, that when you start looking at what's available for businesses and that, man, I mean, it's just unbelievable what there is. I mean, there's all kinds of help there. And I think that's one of the areas we're trying to educate our entrepreneurs as to kind of help them where to look and where to find what they need.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was just wondering about, is I've been gathering up resources for a while for the, you know, for the college students. And, you know, there's hundreds and hundreds of links of things, and deciding kind of where those limits are is, I think, a little bit tricky. The other question I had, while other folks are thinking, is you mentioned a board member network really briefly. Could you talk a little bit more about, like, how did you use your board members, and what do you mean by, you know, like expanding the network? How do you actually implement that with your new businesses?
yeah, so what we've kind of been doing is kind of utilizing like a highlighting tool of, here's some of our board members. And what actually had sparked from that is people that were following their Facebook page. We had one person that saw, well, you know, so-and-so clicked on their profile and their business and saw that they were new and starting up. And so Dan Parr, with his clothing line, or 3D printing, or not screen printing of clothing and materials, had kind of reached out to Michelle and kind of sparked that starting point of how did you go through this process of becoming an entrepreneur, and created that, so to speak, network of leveraging each other in at least a local context. And so that was kind of neat to see early on in the process. And we've only really started this process using social media within the last month and a half, 2 months.
Yep.
And so it's just kind of nice to see some of those early feedbacks.
Our board is made up of a pretty diverse group of people. We've got, what is it, 8 people, Joe, I believe, and, you know, different ages, different businesses, working in different things, schools, local businesses, working at bigger businesses where they work, like, for example, Paul is president of the bank. And so we've got, you know, a pretty wide communications. Wendy is our editor of our local paper. We've got a pretty wide group of people on our board. So we come up with a lot of ideas. It's really worked out real well, I think.
Awesome. I'll open it up for others in the room. Any questions, comments, or suggestions maybe for the toolbox?
This is Gary Shad. On my question, yeah, so it's great the gathering of toolbox and make it easier to find that information. So good job on that. Applaud you on that. 2 things. During the pandemic, how did you, businesses that were able to survive, in many cases had some sort of pivot move. Could you tell anything about the pivot moves some of your small businesses made, and perhaps how you as community support people or your network helped those businesses make those pivots to survive the pandemic?
In particular, with like our restaurant industry, everyone had gone into that takeout mode. For us as a Rotary Club, as an example, we had shifted gears and continued our catering with our local Tommy's downtown restaurant, and had our meetings, picnics in the park. So we continued our order. We really more or less rallied as a community in a way that supported people taking box lunches and supporting those restaurants. So we haven't had any loss of businesses in that scope. I think that's one thing about Springfield, is everyone kind of recognizes those pain points, and we're willing to step in and help promote that buying local mentality. And I think that was part of our success.
I think another thing we did see is our local retail businesses actually saw steady business, if not even a little increase. I think possibly because people didn't travel as much, they tended to stay local. And so as a whole, I think we came through the whole thing really pretty good from what I'm hearing.
And as I
Great.
said, we helped out businesses with emergency loans, just like every other EDA in a sense. And I think what we also had done was with whether it's picnic tables or supporting people in signs and advertising, PPE, we had given every one of our businesses, we had supplied them with about 100 masks and hand sanitizer and signage. The day the mask mandate had rolled out, we had basically a stockpile that was built up from our medical center, as well as orders for our state baseball tournament we had hosted this summer. And so we had the ability to support our businesses a lot more than most.
We also deferred some payments, license fees, and that sort of thing, which we either deferred or canceled for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Some good action there. And it's great to hear, if I am understood you correctly, that you didn't lose any of your businesses during the pandemic. So that's, I think, pretty phenomenal. My follow-up then, coming out, as we're coming out of the pandemic and the easing of the masks and some of the restrictions, is there anything that you were doing to kind of, I think, either celebrate or kickstart into the new normal with any of your small businesses? I mean, obviously what you're doing here is helpful, but is there anything else that you haven't highlighted that?
Yeah, so we're hosting Riverside Days this June, and we've been planning Riverside Days as a community festival since January, and kind of planned out the worst case scenario of COVID. With hosting the baseball tournament, we kind of use that as a template as a worst case scenario. And for the kickstart event of Riverside Days is we're hosting a business to business luncheon, picnic in the park for all of our entrepreneurs to kind of highlight their successes. And so that's Thursday at noon in Springfield on the 22nd, I think, 23rd maybe of June, 24th of June. And kind of use that as again, flagging and supporting, here's the success of weathering the COVID storm, more or less, and how do we kind of rally the excitement and momentum of both Rev and our entrepreneurs to kind of have that celebration, community celebration.
Good, thanks.
Leah has her hand up. Go ahead, Leah.
Well, I'm going to go with a shameless plug and say 1 million cups should be a part of your resources as for entrepreneurs to pitch their ideas and get feedback from other entrepreneurs.
Definitely. No, that's good.
And Anne Vogt, you had a couple thoughts in chat. Would you like to share those so that we can get on here and on Facebook Live? Oh, looks like she might not be here. Anyway, there's a point in chat. She says, a thought for you in listing the resources on the left side of the page. If I don't know what those groups do, could you organize them by service or type of assistance?
No, that's good feedback.
Mm-hmm. There's a thing called Fast Track. I don't know if that's in your list, but it's a free resource online that basically walks a person through a lean startup kind of business planning model online. It's like a little mini entrepreneurship class. I know that the SBDC uses that as a tool sometimes too. It's a really neat program, I think. It's a fast, TRAC.
TRAC.
Yeah, .org. And you can just link to it and people can set up free accounts. Aaron, go ahead.
Have to find the unmute button. I am Erin. I am in Montgomery, and I'm also part of our RED program, which would have started about the same time as you did. I just wanted to say I love your business toolbox page, and I think that we were told about that and plan on creating one for ourselves as well. But I just wanted to mention that in our RED program, we're kind of focusing on the young entrepreneurs and keeping young entrepreneurs in our community, but also those entrepreneurs transitioning out. So to help with the transition and to bring that transition into everyone's view, because businesses transition, and rather than losing them, you want them to transition. So we're going to focus on those two areas. And that transition, I mean, it happens at every age, honestly, but so that business owners are thinking about that. And I don't remember where I had read it, but when you're planning a business, that's an important thing to even do when planning of what do you want the end to look like when you're ready to be done? What do you want done? So it's good to get people thinking about that. So I just wanted to add that to your ideas and think that your business toolbox is very good.
Yeah, no, that would be great to have that.
Yeah, I think that's a real good idea.
Mhm.
You know, we've talked about that just a little bit. I was going to mention, you know, we talk about our entrepreneurs, but we also are working with the businesses we have. We don't want to forget about them. And I know we've had a few instances where all of a sudden someone just decided that they were going to retire and go out of business, and it kind of caught us off guard. And that's a very good point. Now we're kind of looking around at our businesses and say, well, you know, how long are these guys going to keep going, and do they have any idea, especially the smaller ones where it's just maybe one or two, or maybe a husband wife thing. You know, who's going to take over when they decide to leave?
I've heard of some communities having some luck with mentorship and apprenticeship programs, you know, sort of with that succession planning idea, bringing young folks in who have an interest in the general area, getting them to apprentice with the possibility that, you know, there might be a succession option there, contracts for deed, and ways to kind of help them with the financing to keep that, you know, important business like hardware stores and things like that going in communities. I don't know, has anybody heard of that sort of thing or seen it in their communities, apprenticeship or mentorship kinds of situations like that to help with succession?
Yeah, I'm sure Yvonne, you're aware of the young man, an electrician that one of the established, I think it's Key Electrics or Key Electrician, Key Electrics maybe, and did that very thing and spent a good time and had, I think, a pretty, for last I heard, very successful handoff. So that's something definitely to foster, and I think help businesses understand that, as Aaron suggested, plan ahead. Don't think, hey, I've got this great business. You know, this is my retirement, and you turn the switch, and people come flocking to buy your business, and then they overinflate the value of the business. So I think somehow getting some counseling in an easy fashion, be thinking well in advance. At some point, how do you transition and keep the community is really key. I had a question. I think Joe, you referred, I believe, the Loft Nutrition, and I guess we're going to hear some, so maybe I should, ahead of the game, that the building that they're going into, that was the one that you guys had rehabbed and looked at various ways to get entrepreneurs there attracted. Is that, am I understanding that is one and the same building?
Yeah, yep. And I'll pull it up here. So a year ago, well, a little longer now, but in December of 2019, we had put out a request for proposals to utilize the building and partner with the universities to get applications, ultimately to leverage a space that low barrier to entry, right? There was no rent, it's just the utilities. There was an apartment up on the second floor, and really tried to incentivize creating an incubator in a sense of that space. And COVID hit and kind of brought that to a screeching halt, but it re-triggered the conversations in the community locally of here are facilities that are readily available in a sense for business expansion. And so Courtney had started her business in the height of the pandemic in August of 2020 and has grown pretty remarkably actually. And so this last spring, she was looking at purchasing a building, and the Bittler building is was the prime candidate for her to purchase from the city. And so we sold the building here and closed on it this week actually. And so it's a little, well, I should say we closed on it technically. We signed the deed on Friday, and so yeah, it's a lot of excitement around that building. And then I'll just show a quick update here. And so this is Courtney and her kids, and working on the interior, remodeling the space right now as we speak. Over the last few months that they've been kind of prepping this facility, this space for them to open. So it's pretty exciting.
And our EDA did work with Courtney also, and helped her with some of the finance things on that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of you may recall Courtney presented to 1 Million Cups about her business not too long ago. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she presented in September or October or something like that. Yep.
Yeah, I love seeing updates, kind of seeing what's happened with the business. When she opens up, do you know what will be in the retail space?
Yeah, so she does new kind of shakes, nutritional shakes, and I can go back this way. So they're in the front wing. I wonder if I click there, maybe it's loading. There we go. So basically, her front kind of 20 feet by 30 feet entry or lobby way will be more of that quick sit down kind of cafe type of a feel or a vibe. And then there's another wing or further into the building, about a 30 by 40 foot space. And she's been doing yoga classes and kind of different exercise studio uses there as well. And so that'll be in that area. And then there's a garage that's attached, and she plans to lease that out for rentals to kind of keep subsidizing the space. Because there's an apartment upstairs she's going to be leasing out, and then the garage space she'll lease out for income, and then use those two different spaces for her own business use. So like and follow the Loft Nutrition's Facebook page.
That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the update. That's really neat. Tell her she's always welcome to come back and represent, 1 Million Cups in the future. We'd love to hear an update. Maybe after she opens, she can come back and give us a little virtual tour. That'd be awesome.
Exactly. So she'll definitely be in the loop on that one.
Or maybe if we're back in person, and sometime in this next year, we can have a meeting there. That'd be fun. Any other questions for Joe or John about what's happening in Springfield? And any questions about anything they've talked about yet today? Maybe just to wrap up, could you give us a quick overview of how you believe Rev has helped your community? Like, in what ways has that brought new energy or new ideas or whatever to the community?
I think it's re-highlighted kind of that entrepreneur spirit or excitement in the community. We had in our newspaper article, John and Wendy had worked on, a lot of people just bought into the concept of the Kickstart Springfield idea.
Right, that was a great idea. This Kickstart Springfield, it's really caught on. People are asking us about it. What is this Kickstart Springfield? And we're seeing it. It's just kind of a catchy name. Actually, Michelle, I believe, came up with that, and it's worked out great. I mean, it's got people talking.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like each week in the paper, we've been doing our ribbon cuttings or grand openings of a highlighted business. And so we've already done 3 so far to date, and we have our next one next Monday. And so it's just kind of reignited that community spirit or support too, in a way where that business gets talked about all week, being in the paper, and that's where almost, I would say, I think the school did a survey, and like 70+% their primary local news source is the local paper. And so it just creates that conversation topic, and make sure you stop in the Loft, or make sure you stop at the boutique, and really kind of support those people and highlight them, and creates that
and I think the timing worked out well with the loosening of the COVID stuff, where people are a little more up, 6 months, a year ago, everybody seemed like it was just, woe is us. And now all of a sudden people are getting a little more optimistic, and they're getting out, and spring is here, and, it's the whole attitude. And I think this is all over, but I think we really see it locally here.
Sounds great. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about Rev in the various communities. I think it's really exciting. Very cool. Thank you so much for your presentation.